Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Never before in the history of sports podcasts have two men brought you opinion and analysis like these two. They speak for a city that's desperate for wins and titles, not whining and travesty. You might not agree with what they have to say, but you'll defend their right to say it. Sports fans across the world, from Chicago, Illinois, this is the Mac and Reed Show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another edition of the Mac and Reed Show right here on the Barroom Network. A good Wednesday evening to those of you watching live on YouTube right now. If you missed any of our previous episodes, we're, of course, found on the Barroom Network channel on YouTube, on Spotify, on iTunes for the audio-only versions. I'm at The Real Evan Mac on Twitter, on social media, and Ross is at Ross Reed, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it these days. Ross? Hello. Happy belated to my co-host, Ross. 42 years young. I didn't mean to just give out your age like that.
I'm not ashamed of it.
But you look 32.
If I have more gray hair these days, it's because I have a 6-year-old and I'm a Bears fan.
Yeah, I'm right behind you. I'm going to look like fucking Gandalf by next year with my 2 kids in the Bears. So good times. We will dive into a lot of Bears topics this evening. Justin Fields, Matt Ebeflus, that just dog shit game against the Denver Broncos, which now firmly puts the Bears in the worst position possible, as in the worst team, pretty much undisputed in my eyes in the NFL, even though the Panthers are 0-4 as well. They've looked a bit more competitive than the Bears at times. And then, of course, we'll whip around the NFL. We'll preview. They're on a short week this week, so it only gets worse as they play the Commanders on a Thursday night game. And then we'll whip around the NFL. We'll talk about hot starts for certain teams, not so hot starts for others after 4 weeks of action. Individuals, I want to give some love to some defensive players in this podcast, and then surprises along the way. Spooky season is here. Perhaps we'll get some scary movie takes by Ross or some Halloween tips and decoration and whatnot. So surprises along the way, a lot to get to. As I mentioned, to begin, we, of course, talk about the Chicago Bears. And again, just circling back to this past Sunday, you thought that they were getting a nice cupcake win, on the lakefront against the Denver Broncos. But the Bears, again, just seemed to me to solidify themselves as the worst team in the NFL after that loss. They gave up a huge lead late in the fourth quarter, losing by a field goal, and then the interception to seal it was it just seemed very fitting, clinching in the fourth that Denver got from this defense that was worse than the Bears going into it, dropping the 14th game consecutively for the Bears, 14th game in a row under Ebeflus era, if you will, and Justin Fields and company. It was brutal, but Justin Fields, the lone positive was the 300-yard passing game he had, but kind of comes with an asterisk when you played the Denver Broncos. But he was spreading the ball around. He made some pretty good throws, pretty good plays. But of course, when you throw that interception, you're not able to go and get points to either force overtime or win the game. That kind of, it spoils the day. They wanted to get a win. They wanted to break this 0-3 streak now on the season, 0-4. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but, if you had any other impressions against that Broncos team and that brutal loss on Sunday, let them be known now, Ross.
I don't know what to say, to be honest with you. I think we're all at a loss for words right now. We're a quarter into this season, and it's, to me, starting off to be definitely a top 5 worst Bears season of my lifetime. And I've seen a lot. I've seen the end of the Dave Wanstead years and the Dick Duran years, and obviously the Mark Trustman years. And even how Mike Ditka went out and stuff like that, it just got really dire there. But this is right up there. You start to look at this football team, and they're starting to, when you start to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, is when you know that you're a really bad football team. Denver stinks. Denver has arguably the worst defense in the NFL. The Bears are probably right there with them, but Denver has a terrible defense, and the Bears were able to move the football on them for 3 quarters, and then things just went to a halt. And it's like they just turtled up as an offense, as a defense, the entire thing across the board. And so you start to look at this situation right now, and you really, we talked about it last week, the organizational failures that this organization has. They are a complete mess right now from top to bottom. And then you look at this coaching staff, and Matt Ebeflus and Luke Getsy, it feels like they're just pressing the wrong buttons at the exact wrong time. You're doing Cole Kmet quarterback sneaks for the second time this season on 4th and 1. You're at a crucial 4th and 1 spot in the game, and you take the football out of Justin Fields' hands to get a crucial first down when you actually could have just kicked the field goal and took the lead at that point after your team was reeling, giving up 21 unanswered points. These are critical coaching decisions and coaching mistakes, in my opinion. And now they're on a short week. Their whole secondary is out, seemingly, except for one starter. There's no Eddie Jackson tomorrow. There's no Jalen Johnson tomorrow. Jaquan Brisker tweaked his hamstring today in practice. He might not play tomorrow. They had to sign DeJuan Harmon off the practice squad to come in. He's probably going to play a lot of snaps tomorrow. Does that even make a difference at this point? They're just in a complete disarray right now. And, I saw the headline of this episode today basically saying, will Matt Eberflus be fired, right? Or how long until Eberflus is fired? It might be Friday morning, and it very possibly could. Tomorrow could be his last stand as a head coach of the Chicago Bears. I believe that wholeheartedly. And the Bears are an organization that never fires a coach in the middle of the season. But I really believe that this Friday could be it for him. I think if it gets bad tomorrow night, and it could get very bad tomorrow night, I just don't see how they bring back Eberflus, after this game. And I know people have told me all week, well, who's going to step in and take the job, and who's going to do the, who gives a shit? At this point, you can have Bug Bunny go in there. You can have Yogi Bear go in there and be the head coach. If this is the kind of effort and the kind of decisions that they're going to make, they haven't won a game in nearly a fucking year. So who cares who the head coach is going to be on Friday morning? At some point, this organization does have to take some kind of accountability, and somebody's going to have to lose their job on Friday if by chance they do come out tomorrow and lay an egg in Washington.
Over 11 months, more than 11 months since they've had a win. It would push it to 14 in a row should they lose against the Commanders traveling. Eberflus is obviously, getting grilled by the media at this point. He said, quote, "I've been doing this 32 years, so I understand the business, but I understand that to do it right, you got to focus on your job, and you got to focus on right here, right now." So you can think about a lot of different things that's going to do nobody good. You can focus on your job and where your feet are right now. Our sole focus is on Washington. It sounds like a guy who just has no place as a head coach currently and who is just at a loss. And as much as, again, just talking about the headline of this, there's obviously so many different layers to the issues that the Bears have as an organization, failures just in multiple tiers, that it does fall largely on Eberflus because, 14 losses do fall on you as the head coach. They fall on two guys mainly. They fall on Justin Fields and Matt Eberflus when all else is said and done, when you think about the stat sheet and everything else that goes into it. But Eberflus has just not conducted himself like a guy who seems like he is an answer. He certainly is part of that problem and part of that critique where Justin Fields' talent is just being wasted with this organization at this point, which is just the worst travesty to mention this season and going into last season. But again, going back to when will he be fired? If they lose, I don't know why you would hold back. I know that, we talked about it last week as well, that there's no one waiting in the wings, right? There's no special linebackers coach. Maybe there is, who knows? But that's why you have these assistants to take over when you do fire a guy like Matt Eberflus and a coach who's just not getting it done, to change it up, because through 4 weeks of football, nothing has worked. Your defense has been atrocious. You could put the asterisk of injuries on there, but scheme has a ton to do just as much as anything. The whole situation with Chase Claypool, we haven't even mentioned, but the offense and Luke Getsy, it just looks very bad. It's still, this team still remains one of the just most lethargic offenses, most unimaginative offenses that I've seen in my lifetime. 22nd in points for in the league right now, barely getting the run game going. You can't even hang your head on that, which was at least a bright spot last year with Justin Fields running the ball. He hasn't even had that, and I know he had that 300 plus yard passing game this last week, but again, that just came with a huge loss to the other worst team in the Denver Broncos. Circling back to Eberflus, I don't know where you go from here. I know that everybody's pounding the wood for Jim Harbaugh and thinking about other names, and everybody already sports radio is talking about their top 3 coaching candidates, mostly offensive minded guys. There's who's it, Ben Johnson in Detroit, certain guys like that. But he needs to be fired. Like if you're performing poorly like this and you push it to 15 games in a row, get him out of there. What's the point? It's just, get some different sort. It's clearly the hits principle. Nothing is working. Get him out of there. It makes no sense to me to keep him there. And it has never made sense to me when guys are failing like that. When you turn around, when you fired Lovie Smith after 10-6 season, when you don't fire a guy who's lost 15 games in a row, what is wrong with you? What are you watching that we're not watching?
I completely agree. And, to me, it just comes back to, accountability has to take into effect. And no matter what industry you're in, whether you're in sports or sales or anything else, you have to be accountable for your actions or lack thereof. You have to be accountable for your, how you do your job. And unfortunately, he has been an abject failure at his job. And so because of that, I don't understand how you can continue to go through the motions. It obviously can't get any worse. You're already 0-4. I don't think you start looking at their schedule, it's going to be tough to even find 1 to 2 wins on this schedule going forward. So, what are you holding on to him for? This season is basically already lost at this point, unfortunately, as Bears fans, and unfortunately for a lot of players in that locker room, because a lot of those guys do care and they do give a shit. But like I said, if it gets bad tomorrow, I think the Bears have no choice but to fire him. I would elevate Richard Hightower. He's your special teams coordinator. That to me makes the most seamless transition in theory because, special teams, while it is very important, I'm not trying to take away from what special teams or what a coordinator does, but he doesn't have to take away Luke Getsy, who's already having his own problems trying to be an offensive coordinator. You can't ask that guy to also take on head coaching duties and stuff like that, So I would do that, and I would elevate Hoke to be the defensive coordinator and just roll with that. And you pray that your most valuable assets that you have on the roster don't get hurt for the rest of the season. And that's all you have at this point. I mean, we're at the point right now where it's not even Halloween yet, and you can't tell me as a Bears fan you're not thinking about the dreams of having Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Olu Fashnu, right, as an offensive tackle and guys like that on the team. That's where we're at right now. I know people were watching USC versus Colorado on Saturday and saying, this guy very well could be our quarterback of the future in a few months. That's where we're at right now. And it sucks. It sucks as a Bears fan. It sucks even for Justin Fields because it feels like we're all writing him off. But the writing's on the wall here. Rookie or quarterbacks on their rookie contracts, they don't typically get a third head coaching regime, which is what Justin Fields would get. And if you have a chance at a generational prospect like Caleb Williams, and Caleb Williams is a generational prospect, you have to go for that. And Godspeed to Justin if it does work out that way.
Yeah, you bring up that good point, and it's tough to admit that as Bears fans and looking at the tape and just the situation around Justin Fields right now. It is the wasted talent. It is that wasted potential. And not largely his fault, right? Where we see this and now it continues to talk. We continue to hear about the Atlanta rumors and every critic kind of crying for Justin Fields to move on, like not questioning his talent, maybe future in the NFL as a whole. But if you are the Bears, who would have the number 1 and number 2 overall pick, if the season ended today and continue to just slide like they do, continue to look like the worst team in the league, then I don't know how you could pass up Caleb Williams at number 1 overall, who, looks like on the pace he has and the way he played against Colorado and the way he's played so far this year, could win back-to-back Heismans. Just an incredible talent at quarterback for USC. And then either get, a real stud wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr., or a stud offensive tackle. Take your pick, or trade the pick and then continue, do what Ryan Poles did and look to stockpile more draft picks. That's a long way away, but that's the only silver lining you have as Bears fans right now. Looking at the team that's assembled right now, preparing for the Commanders, it's really also just so disappointing to see this team, just being hit by the injury bug. And now Tevin Jenkins, a little bright spot. They're going to potentially get him back. He's been full participant in practice this week, coming off the IR. He's questionable, but full participant. That defense just, they're signing, again, guys who are 10-year veterans or just guys who just were clinging to the practice squad as far as the secondary is concerned, with Jaquan Brisker questionable. We know that, like Ross mentioned, Eddie Jackson and Jalen Johnson are out again. Your starters, there's a huge lack of a pass rush, as we know, with this Bears defense. As Joe mentioned in the chat, defensive line is quote the worst I've ever seen. It's really bad. Their pressures, they have 22 quarterback pressures on the year as a unit. There's individual guys. There's at least 5 individual guys out there who have more quarterback pressures than the Bears as a team. It's atrocious. And looking into Washington, it kind of feels like Justin is auditioning for other teams at this point, and a lot of these guys who their future might not be with the Chicago Bears at this point. So it's interesting to see. I want to circle back too, Ross, to this whole Chase Claypool fiasco. I mean, he's already, I feel like, solidified his legacy. He was inactive for the game this past Sunday. They said stay home. It doesn't look like he's going to play another down in the Bears uniform. Just one of many disappointments for the offense overall. But what do you do with Claypool at this point? And is he done as a Bear?
He's certainly done as a Bear. The whole thing, let me double back. The way the organization handled the whole thing, to me, was messy. You had a lot of people scrambling over the weekend, trying to get their stories straight. You got Justin Fields telling you that Claypool was benched on a Saturday. Ebeflus said it was on a Sunday. Then PR steps in and they said, no, we told him to stay home, or we asked him to stay home. And then he said, just a lot of he said going around with this whole situation. But Claypool has definitely played his last game as a Chicago Bear. And to be honest with you, players get their game checks on Tuesdays. And I was actually really surprised that they didn't release him yesterday. I was surprised they didn't release him yesterday because, why continue to pay this guy to stay at home? I don't think you're going to find a reliable trade partner for him. Everybody in the league knows who this guy is right now. He is a malcontent. He is an issue in the locker room, and he's not a very good wide receiver on the football field either. And so who's going to give up even a future 6th or 7th round pick for that situation? Teams are going to wait this out, and they're going to wait for the Bears to release him, and they're going to maybe kick the tires on him on a veteran minimum or something like that. And so again, this circles all the way back to that same accountability situation. Why is he even still on your roster? Why is he even still sitting at home collecting a paycheck for you? Admit that you made a mistake. You traded what turned out to be the 32nd overall pick for him, but admit you made the mistake and just cut him off your roster. And this goes back to now we start having a conversation about, is Ryan Poles even good at his job? What does Kevin Warren do as a president of the team? That's why we're talking about for now the second week in a row. This is just an organizational nightmare. They can't get their story straight about this situation. They talk about this hits principle and stuff like that. Yet you went out and got a guy who basically Pittsburgh was begging you to take, and you gave up a second rounder for him. That is just one of the worst trades that you can make in a long time as a Chicago Bears GM. And a lot of people point to the Trubisky trade, and this is just up there as just as bad. So yeah, it's just a whole mess right now. But again, he shouldn't be even on this roster anymore. And I just don't know where the accountability comes from as a Chicago Bears organization. Who holds Ebeflus accountable? Who holds Ryan Poles accountable? Who holds a lot of these players accountable and stuff like that? I just don't see it. We talked about, I saw Justin Fields talk about that. His favorite play over the weekend was a 3rd and 9 where he was getting heavily pressured off the edge, but he still completed the throw. And he admitted Lucas Patrick hiked the ball too early. And that caused everybody to just freeze and almost got his quarterback killed. Why is he on your football field? Lucas Patrick makes mistakes week in and week out. You signed a guy in the offseason, a veteran center, specifically for this. At 0-4, where's the shaking of the trees? Where is your sense of urgency and starting to kind of flip things around and say, we need to shake things up in here and get some energy, because the guys that we're putting out there and what we're doing as an organization right now is just not working.
And again, circling back to, you just have nothing to lose. Why not shake it up a bit? And, speaking of shaking it up, we're talking about Tevin Jenkins in the chat, and feel free to those watching on YouTube to chime in the chat. We're talking Bears and previewing the Commander Bears game on Thursday night tomorrow. And Tevin Jenkins, if he plays, what does he do for you offensively as far as boosting that offensive line? Certainly a new warm body that should help when they've been hit by the injury bug, and a breath of fresh air, I feel like. But I agree with you. We've just made a lot of excuses for Lucas Patrick and his age and injury and all this, but those mistakes are intolerable. It was the same with, Braxton Jones when he had a bunch of flags until he was unfortunately moved to IR. But Tevin Jenkins, you think he plays tomorrow, Ross?
It looks like he's trending towards playing, which is going to be awesome, because it's listen, I'm still at the point right now, even with an 0-4 season, I want to see your top young talent be able to go out there, because you still need to see what you have as a roster going forward, right? A lot of these guys are still going to be a part of the future of the Bears in some capacity. So they need to get out on the football field and show what you have, whether it's for Ryan Poles or the next regime that comes in and takes over this roster. So I would like to see Tevin out there. I hope that he can start to string some starts together, consistency, right? Because the issue, the jury is still out on him in his career, because he just hasn't been able to stay on the football field. So it will be good to see him back out there. We don't have Braxton Jones out there still. Larry Borum is a complete mess at left tackle. So the Bears are still not starting their top 5. And regardless of whether the Bears are going to get Caleb Williams or not, I think we can all agree that we still want Justin Fields to succeed in some capacity, and we still want to see what he can do at his peak, right? And with the most talent on the field that he can have, whether it's because he just completely does a 180 and he flips the script and somehow he's just this amazing quarterback that we need to keep going forward despite the record, or you're able to flip him to another team in the offseason because you are getting Caleb Williams, and you can maybe get yourself a first round pick or an early second round pick for him. It's going to be tough either way, because his 5th-year contract is coming up. I know a lot of people are saying Justin had a great game on Sunday. He had a great game, 100%. Still 2 bad turnovers. Those are still 2 turnovers that you can't have. I know it was a bad play. I know it was a busted play. I know an edge rusher came off free off the edge and caused him to do something with that football. That's still a football that you need to hang on to, that you need to tuck. If you follow quarterback school on Twitter, JT O'Sullivan, he actually put it on Justin. He said Justin did not get deep enough on the naked bootleg to cause that play out there. I do think the interception was on Cole Kmet. I know Justin ate that, but Justin also has a tendency to trust a player who I personally think doesn't do enough for his size on the football field in man coverage. Cole Kmet plays like he's 175 pounds against man coverage. And I want Justin to stop throwing him the ball in those spots, because more times than not, they're ending up as mistakes on Justin's behalf. you have DJ Moore. If I'm Justin Fields, or if I'm in Justin Fields' ear, I'm telling him, you remember when Matthew McConaughey, I'm gonna get real gross here. When Matthew McConaughey was at the beginning of Wolf of Wall Street, and he asked Leo how many times he jerked off, and Leo was like, oh, once or twice a week. And he's like, those are rookie numbers. You got to pump those numbers up. Whatever targets Justin Fields is going to DJ Moore, pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers right now. If I'm Justin Fields, I'm trying to pump those numbers up to DJ Moore as much as possible. Cole Kmet is awesome when he's wide open. When he's not, he fucking sucks.
Yeah. And Cole Kmet coming off that 2-touchdown game, but still that was a bad interception on Kmet. And still these receivers, as much as there's a lot of fault to throw at Justin Fields with these turnovers that are certainly inexcusable in these games and late game situations, especially. There's a lot, you're seeing these little things that add up to wins and losses and guys' jobs on the roster. I did not think I'd get a Wolf of Wall Street reference out of you today, Ross. Well done. We needed something like that. So looking ahead,
I've been in my Scorsese bag lately. We're getting Killers of the Flower Moon in a couple weeks.
Gotta get ready for that.
So I've been dipping back into some old Scorsese movies. The GOAT, the greatest director of all time. So I had to throw that Wolf of Wall Street reference out there.
Yeah, that will be a good movie for sure. It's a big runtime, though. We got to talk more about intermissions with those movies because I can't take it. Anyways, as we put a pin on the Bears, we've talked about them at length. Commanders are not good. It's another road game for the Bears. It's a short week. I expect the struggles to continue, certainly against the Commanders, but it's another bad defense. They give up, on average 30 a game so far this season. So I expect Justin to be able to move the ball and be able to sort of put that, just continue that. That was a confidence building game despite the turnover that ultimately sealed the game for the Broncos. I expect him maybe not get 300 yards, but get a couple touchdowns and through the air, and then try to run the ball. I mean, for God's sakes, with you got a little bit more of Khalil Herbert gone. I've sprinkled Roshan Johnson in there. We talk about the few bright spots there are. If you have Tevin Jenkins in there and he's been practicing all week, play his ass. I mean, he's got nothing to lose. Talking about future of individual guys, he needs to be out there just to try and move the football around. But Sam Howell, he just looked okay at quarterback, but balled out against the Eagles recently. So, considering how injured the Bears secondary is and how bad the defensive unit has looked overall, he looks like he might be able to move the ball pretty effectively. So it'll be, it'll be interesting to see which of these bad teams comes out on top. Again, I feel like last week where I can't predict the Bears to win, and it looked like they'll go 0-5 going into this game, especially on a short week here.
It's very possible. It is a feisty Commanders team. They're 2-2 right now. They hung in there with the Eagles this past weekend. I thought Ron Rivera made a mistake by not going for 2 there. You've got the defending NFC champs on the ropes there. To me, you go for 2. I never want to hear him called Riverboat Ron again because he played it as safe as possible. You've got to go for the win right there. But their defensive line is pretty nasty. That's where the Bears are really going to struggle, in my opinion, in this football game. Again, it's in the trenches. Is this offensive line for the Bears going to be able to hold up? And is Justin Fields going to see ghosts against guys like Montez Sweat and De'Aaron Payne and Jonathan Allen and Chase Young? These are some good young defensive linemen that they have, and they really get pressure on the quarterback. Their corners, they got Kendall Fuller. He's the brother of Kyle Fuller, as we all know, of ex-Bear Kyle Fuller. They're also putting Emmanuel Forbes out there. Emmanuel Forbes is a rookie. He's a very promising rookie, but he got his ass torched on Sunday by A.J. Brown. And I think that's the matchup that the Bears have to look at. If they want to exploit something, again, those are rookie numbers. You pump those numbers up if you're throwing the football to DJ Moore. Use DJ Moore. Right now, he's on pace for 1,300 yards. He's one of your lone bright spots on offense right now. Continue to feed that guy the football, right? If you see Emmanuel Forbes on DJ Moore on tomorrow night, you throw him the football. I don't care if he's open, if he's semi-open, if he's not open, throw him the football. You talked about Sam Howell. Sam Howell he's tough, man, but he's been taking a lot of sacks. So if the Bears were to ever get going with some pressure, tomorrow would be the game because their offensive line has struggled. Sam Howell holds on to the football a lot, as do a lot of young quarterbacks these days, and he does take a lot of big sacks and a lot of big hits. It's an interesting game. I think we talked about last week. I really stopped picking these things. I stopped, to figure out who's going to win these things. But if the Bears lose tomorrow, I think we could see some big time shakeups in Hallis Hall on Friday. They got the Vikings after that, and then they have the Raiders after that, I believe, right? This could be like an 0-6, 0-7 start to start the year, which is just absolutely brutal.
It is brutal, and its shakeup is certainly necessary. If you go ahead and lose tomorrow against the Commanders, it's bound to be ugly. All goes down 7:15 Central Time. We get a little Thursday night Bears football, and then we get to move on to the Sunday slate. Any parting thoughts on the Bears before we move on?
I was just say
too much on this show.
yes. I'm surprised Al Michaels is showing up to Washington tomorrow to do this game. He has to be absolutely furious that he has to call Bears Commanders on a Thursday night in that dump of a stadium that is FedEx Field against this is shaping up to be one of the worst Thursday night matchups in a long time. So poor Al, he's definitely going to throw at you about 8 or 9 gambling references and some references from 1950s and 60s TV shows. And Kirk Herbstreit is going to tell you all about how he saw Justin Fields in college and Sam Howell in North Carolina because he doesn't watch a lick of NFL from Thursday to Thursday. It's going to be rough for all of us to get through tomorrow night.
It'll be rough.
Break out the hard stuff.
Break out the hard stuff. They got to flex. I know you can flex teams out of Sunday night games. Like they got to flex these teams out of Thursday night games after a certain point too. It's just brutal to me. Yeah. But Thursday night, I feel like, it hasn't been around as long as Monday night, certainly. And it's still, I don't know, working out their kinks there. And you got Al Michaels, like you said, and Amazon taking over, but it will probably be ugly. 2 of the worst teams in the league you get on a Thursday night. Moving on to the rest of the NFL. 4 weeks into the NFL season, week 5 kicks off tomorrow. Looking at the winners so far, the Eagles are damn good again, as are the 49ers. They're the only 2 undefeated teams left in the league. It's the 3-1 teams, that are really intriguing to me when you have the Chiefs at 3-1, who of course still look good. They eked out a win against the Jets. You got the Ravens, who haven't really had a huge challenge yet in their schedule. The Bills throttled the Dolphins, showed them who's boss still in the AFC East. That was a very one-sided matchup after everybody was just clamoring for the Dolphins and singing their praises. The Bucs might be good, but again, they haven't really played stiff competition yet. Detroit, pains me to say, they look like the best team in the NFC North by far. They can make some noise in the conference. There's a lot to like offensively, defensively, just as a team coaching. There was a close loss to the Seahawks, but bounced back to beat the Packers soundly. And then there's a lot to like, about Miami still. I know they just got beat by the Bills, but then that's kind of a comeback down to earth moment where they had all this momentum, and then you see the polar opposite what this offense can do when it's being a dud. And I think Mike McDaniels can rally his team and bounce back from a loss like that against the Bills. Then you got the Seahawks. Besides the Lions, haven't played great competition, but building confidence as they prep for Joe Burrow and the Bengals. And then, of course, the Cowboys, who are averaging over 30 points per game and their only loss is that weird one against the Cardinals. Sets up a hopefully great Sunday night game against the 49ers. That's this coming Sunday night game. Ross, do you have a favorite 3-1 team of these ones I've mentioned that have impressed you so far?
I think in the AFC, for me, from the 3-1 teams, I think it is the Buffalo Bills. I mean, they had that one fluke loss against the Jets, right, when in the Aaron Rodgers game. But since then, they've been firing all cylinders. I think a lot of people thought that Miami's were going to go into that game and, put up like 30, 40 points on them. The Buffalo defense is actually pretty solid, and it's pretty good. And we know Josh Allen can go out there and score with anybody. For them to put 48 on those guys and just absolutely roll them is awesome. Now Josh Allen is the unquestioned favorite early on, still early for MVP. The Bills are just going to be really good. And if they continue to stack wins as the weather turns, it's going to be really difficult for teams like Miami to go into Buffalo and win a game on the road in a playoff environment with that crowd. So I'm all in on the Buffalo Bills. I think, we potentially could get another collision course with them and the Chiefs, right? Who wouldn't want to see Mahomes versus Josh Allen again in the playoffs? But hanging on right there, I like this Ravens team. I think this Ravens team is very feisty. I like what they're able to do on offense. We talked about a team that could be wide receiver needy, for Chase Claypool. I think they actually could kick the tires on him because they've got the infrastructure, right? They've got a very solid head coach. John Harbaugh is the kind of guy, he's not going to take any shit, anything like that. They've got an MVP in Lamar Jackson there. They've got an infrastructure around him. Odell Beckham Jr. is injured right now. He can't really get on the field. Rashad Bateman is also banged up right now. I think Chase Claypool could fit in that situation because they don't need him, but they can certainly use his reps. But they're a good football team. Their defense is very solid. Yeah. Lamar Jackson had a quote today that said that Roquan Smith is our Ray Lewis. It hurts as a Bears fan, right? We had that guy in the building. You start to wonder, was it the player? Was it the scheme? But we digress, right? He's gone now. Best wishes to him going forward. They're a really fun team. And then on the NFC side of things, I think the Cowboys, even though the Eagles are the undefeated team, I think the Cowboys have actually looked better than to start this year. Again, another fluke loss to the Cardinals. Those losses kind of happen, but they kicked the crap out of the Patriots. Mac Jones, we talked about Justin Fields. Mac Jones looks like he could be the worst starting quarterback right now from that class. I don't know how the Patriots are going to be able to continue to go forward with him as a starter in the next couple of games. He looks absolutely atrocious, but that Cowboys defense is absolutely vicious, man. And I don't see how a lot of teams are going to be able to score more than like 17 points on them. As long as the Cowboys are continuing to move the football down the field and Dak Prescott can take care of the football, they can hang in there with anybody, which makes, like you said, that game against the 49ers is going to be must-see TV because those are the two best teams to me right now in the NFC. Eagles look off to me right now. They look like their offense isn't quite clicking, right? They lost Shane Steichen to the Colts. Ever since he's been gone, Nick Sirianni has taken over the play calling again. It just doesn't look the same kind of continuity. Jalen Hurts looks a little bit off on his throws and in the whole situation. So 49ers versus Cowboys is going to be really fun. And just, kind of touching on it, I think some of the surprise teams are some of the teams that aren't doing so well. And to me, that headlining is by the Bengals. The Bengals are in trouble. The Bengals are in deep trouble. Joe Burrow does not look healthy. They are 1-3 right now. They cannot continue to lose games and fall behind that division. Every year we see some surprise teams make the playoffs and we see some surprise teams miss the playoffs. Bengals got to be right at the top right now of that team that's like, holy crap, they could miss the playoffs right after they spent Joe Burrow all that money. And at one point, do they start thinking about maybe shutting down Joe Burrow for a little while? And then obviously the Giants. The Giants just look absolutely awful. They paid Daniel Jones all that money, $40 million a year. They've got to pay that contract out through the rest of this year. He's also owed that money next year as well. This is why you never pay mediocre quarterbacks big money, is for exactly this reason. You are now hamstrung by that situation for a few years, and you can't get out of it. It just tanks your whole salary cap.
Giants on primetime repeatedly and just terrible. Like, stop subjecting us to this. It would be like putting the Bears in front of you every week on primetime, which thankfully the NFL did not do. Yeah, I'm with you. I really do like the Cowboys. Just talking about those 3-1 teams again, and the Ravens. It seems like that offense just took a little while to get going, and obviously Zay Flowers is one of the best young rookie receivers out there. Mark Andrews coming back from injury, but they could certainly use, between Bateman and Beckham being banged up, they need a third option or fourth option for Lamar Jackson to throw to. But the Cowboys are so balanced that's why, again, that was so head scratching to see them lose to the Cardinals. But it's the NFL. But any given week they can put up 30, 35 points, sometimes 40 against these other teams. And then the defense doing the scoring for them and just making other teams look silly. It really sets up for, looking at next week's slate, a really good matchup against the 49ers, who were coming off that NFC championship last year and who look like certainly one of the most balanced teams in the NFL right now, with their offense humming and Christian McCaffrey just being unstoppable and Brock Purdy just stepping in really nicely. Again, as far as the NFC North is concerned, Ross, are you buying into Detroit and they're able to make some noise in the NFC and beyond the NFL right now? I really like, obviously their, former lottery pick, and Aiden Hutchinson. He's just a defensive beast. They're getting Jamison Williams back, who might provide a little bit of a spark. Obviously, Amon St. Brown, is great. Sam Laporta, great tight end, and Jared Goff. He's playing pretty good football right now. Between him and Cousins, really setting the tone. But how much do you like Detroit right now?
Big plan in Detroit right now. They've got a top 10 offense in the league right now. Jared Goff, he's starting to turn the little football over a little bit again to start these games, but it's okay. But their defense is also coming along right now too. They played some really tough teams in their stadiums and have won both games. Anytime you can go to Kansas City and win a football game in prime time, and anytime you can go to Green Bay and win a football game in prime time, you're a legit contender. They're well coached, they're well prepared, they've got a ton of talent. And then once you start getting them in their building, they're going to play a lot more home games here on that turf. It's going to be really difficult to be able to slow down not only that offense with, like you said, St. Brown. They get Jamison Williams back this week off suspension. Jahmyr Gibbs is probably going to starting to get ramped up a little bit more. Sam Laporta, like you mentioned, but their defense, led by Aiden Hutchinson, they're a good team. They're a very fun team, and you have to tip their cap to them. I know Bears fans don't want to do it because it's a division rival, but they've done it the right way so far. They've built that team from the ground up very, very smart. They have the premier offensive coordinator in the league right now, hint, 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 as he could potentially be your next Chicago Bears head coach. He should be. Ben Johnson is very good, and they're a lot of fun. It's going to be interesting because I do still believe that there is a such thing as like franchise curses and stuff like that. So these are still the Lions.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you still have to like prove it to me. But they're a good football team, and they deserve all the credit. They definitely look like they're going to be able to have this division wrapped up probably by Thanksgiving. And that's going to be a huge plus for them because they can maybe rest some guys, get some guys healthy for the playoffs and stuff like that. I think as Jordan Love plays more football, the Packers are going to continue to fall down, but not quite like really bad. They're probably in that 5 to 7 win area, and of course the Vikings stink, and the Bears are who we thought they were.
Or who we thought they were. Detroit, like you mentioned, off to a really hot start. And they just can't do what the Vikings did last year as far as just fall flat in the second half. So keep everybody healthy, and you're getting certain gadget guys like Jamison Williams, and if you stay healthy, just play good football throughout. It looks like the division's theirs for sure. And looking at that Sunday slate, we got another London game with the Jaguars and the Bills, which could be a good early morning game. Other highlights, I think, what do we got here? The Ravens Steelers is always good. Obviously, divisional game that should be fun. You talked about the Eagles and not being sold on them. I think the Rams are still obviously such a competitive team under Sean McVay, and you're slowly going to get Cooper Kupp back, and even without Kupp, Stafford has been able to make stars out of Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell, some of the best wide receiver names in the game's player. But that'll be a good afternoon game. Eagles traveling to the Rams. And then, it's like you said, I can't harp on it enough with the Bengals. I'm just so surprised. And I know that Joe Burrow is clearly not himself. He hasn't had one of his signature Joe Burrow games where he tosses for like 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. We had one very good Jamar Chase game, and I believe T. Higgins is banged up. Is that right?
Ribs injury. Yep.
Yeah, and so now you hope that Taj Boyd or someone else can elevate their game to help out Chase and Burrow at this point. But that feels like a must win if they want to stay competitive and try to get back into the winners column there when they travel to the Cardinals on Sunday. Jets Broncos. The Jets just are losing close games right now, and they're fighting for their lives early on right now. Besides that, Chiefs Vikings. But Cowboys 49ers is that main event, right? Where you see 2 premier NFC teams, and it should be very fun to watch. And some, obviously, a lot of offensive firepower, but the defense is also what you're tuning in for.
Cowboys 49ers is the marquee game of the week. Obviously, like you said, Sunday night football is gonna be fun. We've had some fun Sunday night football games here to start the year. So and we don't even need Taylor Swift to be at all of them to enjoy them.
Oh, Lord, please. No.
um but listen, we get a fun one to start Sunday morning if you wake up early enough. Jaguars Bills is an interesting football game because I think people forget this is the second game in a row that the Jaguars are going to be in London, and that's to their advantage, right? They're used to the schedule right now. They're used to playing in that stadium, and the Bills are going to probably travel there. I'm assuming they probably leave New York tomorrow. Now, New York to London is not a far flight, but the time change does throw players off and stuff like that. So and these London games are always very weird because it's just, you throw everything out. There's not your fans. It's a different stadium. It's a different time of the day. It's just all wacky. So I something weird is going to happen with that game. Right now, Buffalo's favored by 5.5 points. But I don't sleep on the Jaguars in that game. That could be one of those weird trap games just because they are very comfortable playing in that stadium. Selfishly as Bears fans, in addition to tomorrow night, we're hoping probably that the Lions take care of the Panthers on Sunday and continue to put them 0-5 because that continues to help us move forward to a first overall pick, which at this point is the only thing that we're looking at. You talked about too, the Eagles going to SoFi. That if you're looking for that first Eagles loss of the season, I'm looking at that game right there as like, that's Sean McVay. He's a great guy. He gets his team up for it. Aaron Donald is playing like Aaron Donald again. And I think that could be an upset alert. If for teams looking to maybe pick an upset game of the week, I'd be looking at the Rams there to potentially take out the Eagles in that game. Like I said, I don't think the Eagles are looking that good right now to start the year. So that could be very interesting. And I want nothing to do with Jets and Broncos. I don't even put that on my red zone on Sunday. I don't want anything to do with that. That is the most atrocious game of the week. I will shoot Zach Wilson some bail here and say that I thought he played fairly well this past Sunday. But most importantly, I thought what Rodney Harrison did on Sunday Night Football after the game was one of the most disrespectful unprofessional things that you can do in media, to get up there as a former player and call current players garbage and trying to entice and egg on another current player like Chris Jones to also call him garbage. And shout out to Chris Jones. He was he handled it perfectly. And I know Rodney Harrison apologized to him the next day. That's just nonsense. And me personally, NBC already has like 7 people on the set anyway. I would have dismissed Rodney Harrison for that. There's no reason for that in the game, in the sport. Zach Wilson doesn't deserve that. And you start, we all have made jokes about Zach Wilson and stuff like that, but that's when I start rooting for a guy like that, is when I see stuff like that. That is just absolutely unnecessary and uncalled for Rodney Harrison. And unfortunately, he still has a job this week because I would have fired him.
Yeah, it was pretty unacceptable, especially just from it felt like personal for whatever reason. Like whatever you think about Zach Wilson, it's just not professional to say, "Oh, that player's garbage." Just keep it professional. It goes back to that. And Zach Wilson and his gameplay, it's obviously he's been thrown into a tough situation. He didn't even think he was going to be the starter. He was going to learn some things behind Aaron Rodgers, and it's one of the toughest positions in sports right now for him to take the helm. With the Jets, that's a tough fan base to play for. He made a believer out of Joe Namath. He really turned real quick. Joe Namath was like, he can stay for 10 years. You got to give him the benefit of a full season's worth of competition, I feel like, too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do like that London game starting off early. They should do that, Toy Story sort of visual thing every Sunday for one of the games. It would be fantastic. Between that and the Nickelodeon game, I like what they're trying to do, bringing in younger viewers as much as Taylor Swift brings in the demographic of 18 to 45 or whatever. Then you get the kids with games like this. It's the technology is just really wild to see how these chips, and you were able to see it almost like Madden-like or like a Toy Story video game football come to life. It was pretty fun.
It was. I always wonder, though, with a game like that, heaven forbid somebody gets seriously hurt. But like, if that happens in those situations, like, what do they do? Does like Andy's mom come in and just like take all the toys off the field, and then like Who was calling the game? I don't remember who was calling.
You go to
the
like
game.
Mr. Potato Head throwing up on the sideline or
Right,
something.
like Booger McFarlane CGI'd in, has to like kind of explain like, now kids, sometimes people get hurt, and like that's what I always wonder. Heaven forbid that happens, but like what happens in that situation?
Leg just pops off like a toy, literally. Yeah, that's a good question, Ross. You got a question on that. I did want to talk about before we switch topics, just the defenses. And as much as these individuals, I should say, that are like the pass rushers, we're in this age of incredible quarterbacks. Even more so is the group of pass rushers I see out there right now.
Mhm,
TJ Watt for Pittsburgh, for example, is just a game wrecker. He's got 6 sacks so far.
mhm.
He's been able to just change the course of games. He's got 5 tackles for a loss. He's just every time he's up in the quarterback, up in the quarterback's grill, or just blowing up play after play. A guy like even Josh Allen has been thrown in there, and I love that Josh Allen from the Bills was saying like he outplayed me last year, but he's sort of making a name for himself. The main guys, premier guys though, like Myles Garrett, living up to that hype right now. 5.5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. Max Crosby is just incredible in the way he's able to wreck games. We talked about that Cowboys defense and how they're able to just go out there every week and put up points on their own. And Micah Parsons joked about playing running back. He has 27 quarterback pressures on the season, which is impressive. The only guy tied for him is Max Crosby and Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson, one of the best young defensive players out there. But man, you gotta give a lot of respect to Khalil Mack, who came back on strong this year. 6 sacks. He's tied for first in the league with TJ Watt and Josh Allen. He's
Mhm.
one of that brighter spots of the Chargers defense, not to mention 2 forced fumbles. Like he is, it's just bananas. When you think a guy like that should certainly slow down with age, it just shows you there's at least 6, 7 guys who can just change franchises. And if you're the Bears, you just feel like you had Khalil Mack, and I'm sure you had opportunities at certain other guys like this. It just pains me to see it. Are these one of these guys that stands out more than others, Ross, where you would say, if I could pick one of them overall to just revamp my defense and build around, you would pick them?
To me, it's Micah Parsons. I think Micah Parsons
Yeah.
is the best edge rusher in the NFL right now. I think he'd have more than the 4 sacks he has if they weren't in so many blowouts this year. So I love Micah Parsons. I love everything that he's able to do, disrupt the in the offense and the quarterback. You talked about TJ Watt. TJ Watt is absolutely outstanding. Josh Allen's having a great year. He's having a great start to his career. But I actually think there's a guy on this list that could be obtainable in the offseason. And if this continues to go the trend that it's going, there's a possibility the Bears could have the 1st and 2nd overall picks, but the Las Vegas Raiders could be sitting there at like 3rd or 4th or 5th overall. And, with their quarterback situation, I know they have Aiden McConnell out there right now, the rookie from Purdue. They've got Jimmy Garoppolo, but you're not married to any of those guys long term. They might really want to move up for a guy like Drake May. And to move up to that pick, it might cost you, moving down a couple picks. And why don't you toss in a guy by the name of Max Crosby as well in that trade? And Max Crosby is 26 years old. He doesn't really fit on their timeline right now. There's already been trade rumors about him this year, and if the Raiders are going to be able to hold on to him. If I'm whoever, I was going to say Ryan Poles. For now, it's Ryan Poles. But if I'm whoever is ahead of personnel for the Bears in the offseason, and if the Bears are able to move back a couple spots, because they're maybe taking a quarterback 1st overall, and they might take an offensive tackle or Marvin Harrison Jr. 3rd or 4th overall. I'm calling the Raiders. I'm saying I want that pick, and I want you to toss in a guy like Max Crosby, because that's what the Bears are really missing. Is they do need that premier pass rusher on defense. We talked about in the offseason, we talked about guys like Will Anderson. Look at the Texans right now. The Texans are 2-2 because they've got a great quarterback, but Will Anderson is awesome on defense, and people maligned them for trading up for him. He is having a great start to the career. If you want to win in this league, you need to have 3 players on the team. You need to have the guy that is able to spin it for you consistently. You need to have the one guy on his left side that can be able to protect him at all times. And you need to have the guy on the opposite side of the football that can go attack the other 2 guys that the teams have. And right now, the Bears don't have any of those guys. And so if you're able to possibly add all three to your team this offseason, that would be a humongous win.
Certainly would be. It'd be interesting to see if they engage in some talks with the Raiders to get a guy like Max Crosby, who's a really fun story and who is just a game wrecker. And it's always fun to watch him out there. We're really outspoken. And I know that if you watch Quarterback on Netflix, he's getting into it with Pat Mahomes, but it's all love at the end of the day. He's just really just on another level, as are the guys that we mentioned. I would take, a TJ Watt in a heartbeat too. But Micah Parsons is that, you talk about versatility for these guys, and Micah Parsons just has it all. Just a freak athlete, just all over these guys. Just incredible. Running out of show here. We've been light on anything besides football, obviously, going on week 5 of the NFL. That's all we really want to talk about. And I feel it now at this point. You mentioned Killers of the Flower Moon coming out soon. That's going to be, there's still, it's getting into that blockbuster season again. Obviously the summer was ruled by Barbie and Oppenheimer, but now we're going to get another 3.5-hour movie from Scorsese at this point. If you've read the book Killers of the Flower Moon, that's it's going to be hopefully a great adaptation. It is a wild story and a great cast to match it. And Scorsese always brings it. But dude, give me the intermission. I can't sit for 3.5 hours.
Yeah, you can.
I need a break, like 10 minutes. That's all I ask. I got to time out my bathroom break or just take a look at the ground for a second. Can't do the 3.5-hour 3D movies. That's for damn sure.
You gotta strategically go to the movie theaters. Like I love the Alamo Draft House on the north side because they give you the food and the drinks and stuff like that. But also, if you go to Alamo, the bathroom is strategically put right outside the theater. So at the most, you're missing about 2 minutes of time if you're able to just run in there, do your business, still wash your hands. I encourage you to wash your hands and get back to your seat. But I'm so excited for Killers of the Flower Moon's coming. We're getting The Killer from David Fincher, who's my personal favorite director of all time. That movie's coming out in a couple weeks. Michael Fassbender is the star of that. And we're in Halloween. We're in the spooky season. So we had a new Saw movie come out last week. It got very good reviews, surprisingly. I'd be excited to see that. There's a new Exorcist movie coming out this weekend that has Leslie Odom in it. Oddly enough, the guy from Hamilton is in there. There's a Chucky TV show coming out. Did you know that?
I did see that on Sci-Fi or some shit. Isn't he in space or something weird?
I don't know.
Come on, Russ.
Kim Kardashian is in an American Horror Story show right now too.
A lot of press for that.
I tend to stick to the classics. I continue to watch the classics this time of the year. Your Halloweens of the world and Pet Sematary and The Shining and all of those great classic horror movies that we got from the 70s and 80s and even into the early 90s, like Scream and stuff like that. But I'm not mad at the new ones. This is the time of the year we start getting into that spooky bag a little bit. I like it.
Sure, you got to keep the genre going. And what was it last year? There was a new Halloween, and so they keep these franchises. Obviously, it's hard to compare to those original ones, especially a franchise like The Exorcist and Halloween and all that, and Chucky, and of course Chucky.
They are re-releasing The Birds into theaters as well for the Halloween season. The old Alfred Hitchcock movies. So if you love Alfred Hitchcock films, I do love Alfred Hitchcock. Just a great dystopian thriller. It is shot beautifully. Have you ever seen it before? Just because they kind of remastered it. It looks absolutely gorgeous. I can't imagine how good it looks on the big screen. I actually might have to go partake in that myself because I love The Birds.
Yeah, that'd be something. Alfred Hitchcock has just a ton of classics out there when you think of The Birds and Vertigo and Rear Window and hit after hit. So I would definitely drop money to go see that in the theater like it was intended. Yeah.
And speaking of horror movies, the Eras tour from Taylor Swift is coming in the theaters as well. In a couple weeks. I
snuck that in there.
I want no parts of that.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about it because who gives a shit as far as the Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift situation, just this whole Taylor Swift effect on the NFL. Now we got to see, her in every commercial, in every NFL break, and her getting cut to if you're watching any primetime Chiefs game. I think enough is enough. I've had enough of this. To that end, though, Beyonce is going to have that movie too, just after the
December 1st. Yeah, December 1st, absolutely.
Good. All right, we ran out of show. Thanks to everybody for watching, commenting. If you're on the YouTube live stream, we appreciate you chiming in. Remember, you can catch any of our previous episodes on the Mac and Read name under the Barroom Network show page, of course. The audio-only versions on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, tell a friend or two. Follow me at The Real Evan Mac. Follow Ross at Ross Reed. Everybody have a good weekend out there. You can skip that Bears game if you feel like you can't watch it. That's fine with us. Be good to each other, most importantly. So long, everybody.
Peace.